everybody, welcome to another episode of Making Dough Show, where you and I, restaurant owner, restaurant manager, get together talking about how to make more dough in our restaurant and turning our restaurant into something big. In this episode, we're talking about your first year in the restaurant business and how to not only survive, but thrive. Restaurant business is vicious, and you know that. You can read the stats. Small businesses in general, I think the statistics is about 30% of small businesses get to celebrate their third year in business. 60% to 70% of small businesses don't survive first, second, third year in business. This is outrageous. You know how much money is spent in starting a small business, and particularly if we're talking about a brick and mortar business like a restaurant, there's a lot of capital involved. There you have to pay for a lot up front to enter this game, and losing is horrendous for a restaurant owner as well as your family, because you've saved up or you had to get a loan. Every time in our town a restaurant goes out of business, it breaks my heart, because I know what that means. It's not just the money, it's the sheer amount of stress and what it took for a restaurant owner to start not being successful until the day they had to close their door. I don't want to talk about that. It's horrible, and we don't want to get there. So if you're watching this video interested in how are you going to make the first year of your restaurant business successful, you're in the right place, and let's chat. We have what's called fixed costs in the restaurant that you have no control over. It is fixed no matter what. It is fixed when sales is good, and it is fixed when sales is bad. And that, particularly the big chunk of it, is going to be our rent. Rent is high. Obviously, it depends on where you live and the kind of restaurant you have. In our line of restaurant thing, it's healthy for the rent to be about 7 to 9% of sales. So rent can make or break your restaurant. And so one of the ways that you can battle that is to make sure before you start your restaurant that you have an average of 6 to 8 months, if not up to a year, of the fixed costs in saving. So fixed costs are, again, your rent, it could be insurance, kind of your basic bills and what's going to be on average. If you can have that 6-8 months up to a year, you're going to have so much peace. If sales up front are not the best, at least you know you got the rent going. Otherwise, if you can't pay the rent, sooner or later you got to close your doors. So that's very, very important to have your fixed costs up to a year, ideally, in savings before you start your restaurant business. And the last point, we talked about your food costs and how it is variable, and you can have a little bit more control over it. So it is critical that in your first year in the restaurant business, you make some good deals with your food supplier. And it is great if you can have a prime vendor relationship with your food supplier and use that as a leverage to get better deals. You need to, every month ideally, every quarter, negotiate different items and see what you can get. Worst case scenario, you may not get anything. Say, hey, is this a possibility? Can we reduce this? How about that? You need to be negotiating. And if you're expecting that your food rep is going to come to you suggesting for you to reduce your food costs, they won't. It just doesn't make sense. You need to fight for yourself. You need to be negotiating your top 10 most used items in your restaurant, because if you can get a little bit of a deal on each of those, it's going to have the most impact since you use a lot of it. Next point that is critical in your first year being in the restaurant industry is strategic and smart marketing. In that first year, you don't have as much money to go around. You're maybe not making as much. You're not maybe even hitting break even. So it is critical for us to spend money on marketing, because it is not an expense, but rather it's an investment in your business. Every dollar that you put in, you need to get double or triple of that back in acquiring customers, right? That's why it is critical for us to do marketing. I mean, this is non-negotiable. Now, marketing, the minute you open your restaurant, you're gonna have sales reps walking in, you're gonna get phone calls, you're gonna all kinds of stuff. Yelp ad, I had a phone call the other day with a Yelp rep saying, There are 16,000 people who found your restaurant via Yelp and blah, blah, blah. You're losing customers. 16,000? Hey, if there's 16,000 people who looked up our information last week, I'm golden, okay? I don't think we can handle that many customers at this time. But anyways, they're going to sell you their ad. They're doing their job, okay? They got their own family to feed. You got your own family to feed. You need to fight for your own, what's important in your business. Now, there's going to be Yelp ads. There's going to be local newspapers going to walk in. Oh, this newspaper goes into 40,000 homes and blah, blah, blah. You need to be very strategic and smart about what's going to work, what's not going to work. A lot of these things there's contracts involved that you have to pay for. And overall, in this channel, my focus is helping you make those strategic and smart marketing decisions that is going to result in helping you make more dough. We spent thousands of dollars that first year of our restaurant business making wrong decisions that it pisses me off even thinking about it. But anyways, you have to be very strategic on the ROI and the return on the investment you make on that first year in marketing. That is going to be critical for us to thrive in that first year of business in the restaurant industry. One of the things that makes restaurant a hard industry is our overhead rate. Overhead talks about all the costs ultimately that it takes to make our restaurant successful. You have the labor, you have the food cost. Those two things are variable depending on how much staff you have, and obviously the food cost is percentage of sales. So if we have a lot of sales, we have to purchase more food, be able to make more food. So those two items, labor and sales, we have more control over. If sales are not very good, we can send staff home, or obviously the food, we're not ordering as much, so we're good with that. Obviously we need to be obsessed with those two numbers. But overall, those two items are variable, so we have a little bit of control over. Our labor, you have got to be obsessed with your numbers, especially that first year, because again, we don't have as much money to go around. You need to have a very good POS system. If you have any questions about the POS system and all that, I'm happy to share with you. Send me a quick email to makingdoughshow@gmail.com. We spend a lot of times figuring out what's going to be the best POS system in our company. You need to be able to remotely from your phone check your labor, know where you need to be at. For us, we always try to be between 20 to 25% in labor. That plus all the taxes you need to pay for payroll. You need to be on top of your labor that first year of business. If it gets out of hand, you're losing so much money. You need to check your labor every hour, every half an hour to make sure that you're not losing money. Last but not least is don't get fancy. That first year of business, you don't have as much money. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you, we had flooring that was almost falling apart. We had so much little stuff that needed to be repaired. I hated our chair, some of the decor stuff. You don't have as much money, don't get fancy that first year. The decor, let it go. The little details, whatever you can do, do it cheaply, frugally, make it happen. But that first year, you don't have the money to get fancy. And I see too many restaurants that up front, they spend an enormous amount of money in getting fancy with the decor, this chair and that, this and this and this and that. That first year, I strongly don't advise you overspending that you don't have enough at the end of the year to show for, and then you end up closing your restaurant. Be frugal that first year in different aspects of your restaurant. Save as much as you can so you have enough. Invest in strategic and smart marketing so you have a second year or third or fourth and beyond anniversaries to celebrate. If you need help with any of these things that we talked about in your first year as a restaurant owner, I'm happy to help you out. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and how we're going to make sure you do not go out of business that first year or that second year. And I understand restaurant is tough. It's going to be long hours, 60 hours, 80 hours a week of work. Money's going to be tight, and I want to do my best to help you get through this season so we can get to the next season where you're going to have a thriving restaurant. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any question, comment below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel so we can stay in touch. Until next week, have a great week.